Welcome to what is no doubt going to be a spectacular event, the Kyalami 9-hour powered by Pirelli. And this year, the tensions are high as multiple manufacturers will be vying it out for that coveted championship that runs over multiple continents. This year, I'm joined by Daniel Haynes, and my name is Ernest Page. Daniel, you are our resident GT3 expert, so I'm going to hand it over to you to let us know what exactly will be happening today.
Yeah, thanks, Ernest. It's been 12 long months since the world's best GT3 drivers have braced us with their presence here in South Africa. And these drivers are back here in South Africa, and they're going to battle it out today to see who's going to take that coveted pole position. We have 4 manufacturers this year, and 3 of which are throwing everything they have to try and get that K9 crown. Mercedes are looking to extend on a truly phenomenal year in GT3 racing. They've pitched up with 4 full 9-hour entries, and that's all in the hope that they can regain back-to-back victories from that dominant victory from last year. Then we have BMW. They have a star-studded platinum lineup of drivers and a very fancy team in WRT. They're coming here and they've got a whole new car as well, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they get on with the BMW M4, looking to try and emulate that victory they had in 2020 with the M6. And then we're also looking at Audi. So far, Kyalami 9 has not been a good hunting ground for them. They're looking to try and finally get that tick on their CV. Can they take a Kyalami 9-hour overall victory? So, loads to look forward to, Ernest.
Loads to look forward to. It's a long race of attrition. But of course, these drivers are so used to going the distance and going at it for long. And of course, Dan, as you mentioned, the list is star-studded. Although we don't have that many cars on the grid, we do, however, have a world-class list of platinum drivers. You, of course, get platinum, you get gold, silver, bronze, etc. But these drivers here at the tip of the spear, at the front of the pack, certainly are some of the best in the world. And names like Winkel, Hock, Drudy, and the rest, the list goes on and on. These are names that many of us have heard over the years and have admired over the years. Dan, any drivers that stand out for you, especially from what you've seen in the practice the last couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect opportunity that we have together during qualifying to actually check out drivers individually. We missed that last year, didn't we, solely with the rain that took away the qualifying option. But now we can go through one at a time and get there. Obviously, local favourite Sheldon van der Linde in the 32 BMW is going to be one to watch, but we have some absolute greats in the world of GT3, so we're spoilt for choice.
Well, the qualifying is about to kick off, and this qualifying is in a very interesting format. It's split up into 3 sessions where each driver goes out, does a few laps, comes back into the pits, and other than tyres and some topping up of minor fluids, not fuel, the cars aren't allowed to be changed much. Then the next driver goes out, and then the next. And the average of those 3 drivers is then calculated to find out who gets to the front of the grid. Now, immediately, people have been speaking about BMW. BMW are back at Kyalami with the brand new BMW M4 car that has shaken up the world of GT3 racing, not just because of its interesting looks, Dan, but South Africa is a big market for BMW and they are going to be wanting that win. Some are saying that they're not as fast as they should be, but the top speeds last night beg to differ.
Yeah, that's the story of the entire week has been, well, we think BMW should have it. They're high altitude, their turbocharged engine, the only turbocharged engine on the grid, and it's thinking, what are they doing? They haven't been there in the timings, but they just showed a glimpse last night in that night session, which we watched together, and their top speeds were phenomenal down the back straight, and they managed to just pit fastest lap there in the night session. But overall, Mercedes still looking very strong.
Mercedes looking good. Speaking of night sessions, it of course is one of those events that goes into the night. And last night, the two of us were sat at one of the most iconic sections in South African motorsport at the top of the mine shaft. And it's my first time being there, Dan. I should have been there many, many times before, but I've always been sat in the commentary booth talking to the good folks out there. But last night, you and I went out there, had a look at that corner, and I've got to say, if you are in Joburg, you might want to make your way to the circuit because the viewing at Kyalami, there's nothing else like it.
It really is phenomenal. I mean, it was absolutely awesome to sit up there in the dark, and it really is dark, isn't it, Ernest? You'll vouch for that. Absolutely pitch black, looking at the lights coming straight at you. That's something to look out for tomorrow. It's something special and something that only an endurance race can offer.
Yeah, what surprised me was how dark it was. We spoke about this at length, that there aren't that many lights on the circuit. And one thing you pointed out is that many of the other circuits, the world-class circuits, and Kyalami certainly is one of them, don't have lights either.
No, exactly. It's part of endurance racing, trying to cope with the different conditions. Obviously, we've had Bathurst, round 1, starts in the dark. Here we're round 2 for the IGTC Championship, and it finishes in the dark. So different flip situation, but it's nice to have a bit of night racing in any form.
But IGTC, the Intercontinental GT Challenge, powered by Pirelli, and what exactly that is then is a championship that goes across multiple continents where manufacturers are vying for that championship title. This year, we are second on the calendar. We have, of course, historically been the last leg of this race, so the championship is still wide open. But what is interesting, and we'll talk about some of the local drivers now, is that a local team is actually part of that championship now. I think one of the first times in recent history.
Yeah, it's a big story here for Stradale Motorsport. They've actually been selected as one of the 4 teams that will be scoring points for Mercedes, for IGTC points, which is a massive deal for a local team. So we're very interested to see how Stradale Motorsport get on and how they help Mercedes as a brand in that manufacturer's title.
As we cut to the visuals there, qualifying 1 about to kick off, and that is the view we're talking about. Absolutely spectacular as we look over the city of Joburg, Gauteng, city of Jozi, Johannesburg, whatever you want to call it. It is in fact a beautiful vantage point from Kyalami. And what also surprised me is that the circuit is ginormous, Dan. Over 4 kilometers of winding tarmac. It's pretty wide out there, but these drivers have a long way to go before they come across the line once again in around 1 minute and 42 or 43 seconds.
It's a spectacular circuit, a circuit that all South Africans can be proud of because it's right up there on the international stage. The drivers love it, and I really suggest you get yourself down here because the elevation change is what makes it so special, and that's what we just cannot see on camera, is it? But as we were on top of Leeuwkop yesterday, that drop down the mine shaft is severe. It really is.
And again, I'm ashamed to say I haven't been to the top there until yesterday. And when I walked up there, I've driven past there many times, but when you actually sat on the other side of the fence looking at the races, you get the perspective that can only be achieved when trackside. But we're going to try and bring you guys all of the action here on this broadcast. Of course, this is the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli, and this is the Kyalami 9-hour, and we are about to go racing, folks. The qualifying is about to kick off, and there you have it. That is what the circuit looks like. 2.8 miles, Dan. That's about 4 point something kilometers.
4.5 Ks.
Yes.
Yep.
Number of turns, 16. But we don't count these turns in numbers here. We count these turns by name, and we'll talk about that more later. The GT3 lap record, 1 minute 42. Dan, tell us a bit more about the various types of lap records there are here, because of course they are outright records, and of course the lap records during the races.
Yeah, I mean the interesting one is Matt Campbell, obviously in the Porsche 911 GT3. That was set in 2019 on the return here at 1:42. That is a race lap record. Obviously we have the Honda that went quicker in Superpole the following year, got into the 41.5s. We haven't seen a time that low over practice, but we got close down into the low 42s, and these guys will be giving it absolutely everything. Track temperatures being quite high, plenty of grip on offer, and plenty of track space available to them. So let's see whether we can get close to those times.
Yeah, it's been difficult to read though. You and I have been here most of the week, and we saw Gunan at the start of the session dip into the 43s almost on lap 2, and we thought that certain teams were sandbagging, certain teams weren't pushing that hard, but that has in fact been the pace for most of this week. 42 43s. One team to watch though is BMW. WRT, of course, used to be Audi, now BMW. A bit of a strange change of names there, jumping from one manufacturer to the next, but the BMW is the car that many people are talking about. It certainly has the tongues wagging with its interesting looks and very interesting livery, and let's not forget we've got a South African behind the wheel of that Shell car.
Yeah, totally new, and that's what's, when you're new, you can hold something back. There is a feeling in this grid that BMW have not shown their hand. You start thinking, well, you start panicking that they're not on the pace, but you go down into the garage and that team are very confident. They don't think there's a problem at all. I mean, they spent free practice 2 rubbering up their pit box for the perfect exit for the race tomorrow. Not too concerned about the times that they don't want to show their whole hand. So it'll be really interesting now. It might give us a glimpse as to the actual pace that that team does have. Maybe the engines get turned up, the turbos turned up just a little bit, and finally we can see what that WRT team and the new M4 can hold. They weren't really on pace at Bathurst, were they? They were quite quick in the cooler conditions, but as the track warmed up, that's where they fell away. Obviously it's going to be a reverse situation tomorrow. A lot of teams here commentating that there's not likely to be any full course yellow or red flags with the smaller field, and also a completely different track to Bathurst. So we're looking like a 9-hour sprint. You can't just wait to the last hour and just hope you're on the lead lap. You've got to push the entire way. So I don't know whether BMW, they're not bothered about today. They're thinking about tomorrow. Whether they show their hand or not, we'll have to wait and see as we wait for the first part of qualifying and driver one lineup. We've already got the Grove Porsche waiting at the line ready to start his lap.
Yeah, according to our list, we got Stephen Grove, the father of the other driver over there. And I apologize, Stephen Grove, father of Brenton Grove. We've got Amanda in the pits. Let's cut to Amanda, hear what she has to say. And looks like we've lost Amanda there. Apologies for that.
First out in the 999 Mercedes that'll try to set that lap time, but said this track is very technical. There's not a certain sector that you can get an advantage of. There's not one that really has a disadvantage. It's all about flow, hitting your point marks, and seeing if you can put together a nice lap that can be at the top of that qualifying list. He's going to try to do that here today and see if they can lead that team to the top of the qualifying order here.
And of course, that's only half the story, isn't it? You battle your way through qualifying, and then you've got to do it all over again for 9 hours tomorrow. Car in strife there, leaving the pit lane. That's Sun Moodley's Mercedes AMG that has expired at the exit of the pit lane. Now, has he broken the beam? Yes, he has. So he's left the pit lane, technically.
Can't push him back, can they?
No, not from there, because he's the wrong side of the beam. Technically, he's on the racetrack, so hopefully he's going to be able to go through the restart cycle and get that car fired up, and the drivers that will have to swerve around him will have to break that white line, but I think you can give them license so to do because it's a safety element, but this might actually be a red flag to get that car out of the way.
I have a feeling that could be a delay to the start. We're already 1.5 minutes into the session and we haven't seen a car.
Well, there you go. That was our international commentators over there. Dan, it was a pleasure to listen to them for a little while. We did meet them early on, but now we go back, and there goes Sun Moodley once again. Sun Moodley is back out, and thankfully he managed to get that car started again. That was almost a red flag situation right there, Daniel. But thankfully Sun Moodley has managed to get that car out and going. He is going pretty slowly, but he is the first of our drivers, and we hear the rest of the cars roaring out to the pit lane. There goes one of the favorite cars here, unbelievably fast, and that is of course the
it's the 75 Sun
75
Energy one, and it's got it's the winners of round one at Bathurst. What a race it was with Lucas Stoltz and Jules Gounon. They entered as a pro team at Bathurst, but they're back here now as a Pro-Am side. But we got the first flying lap from the Grove Racing Porsche. We got Stephen Grove in it now, and he'll be joined by Brenton Grove as driver 2. It's actually the first time they've ever done Kyalami. I was speaking to them in driver briefing yesterday. Their only practice was on the simulator. Spent a bit of time on ACC learning this track, but very happy to be here, and we are also very happy to have them as a Porsche 911. They're joined by the very experienced El Bamba. He'll be going last as driver 3, so that will probably be their faster time. But just a reminder, their position on the grid is an average of driver 1, 2 and 3. Yeah. So it's vital that all of them set a representative time. You can't just rely on your quickest driver at the end.
Well, that car, you spoke about the Sun Energy car. Yesterday we saw Jules Gounon just absolutely destroy the lap times with that car over and over. And he is in a strange and interesting position because he's teamed up with the other drivers that aren't quite platinum. So that means that he is not necessarily going for an outright win today, but anything can happen. We saw what happened in Bathurst just a couple of weeks ago as we cut back to a car that was arguably going into this race a favorite. But Dan, you saw that car a couple of days ago. It was in pieces just a few days ago.
This 999 car, I mean, obviously one of the favourites, should have probably arguably won Bathurst a few weeks out, had a few issues with the modem that lost them time. They've had issues all week. I'm slightly concerned that they didn't do much practice. They've had a lot less running than the others. They basically built that car in the pit lane during the week. I mean, I literally stood inside the engine bay because the engine only arrived on Sunday, and they're just desperately trying to get through the niggles, and this is their last opportunity. That car's going into Parc Ferme. They can't touch that thing now, so it's going around. Marouengo at the wheel as driver 1. Very strong driver lineup though.
And this is one of the situations, as you said, they cannot touch the car at this stage. Once the car's out there, all 3 drivers have to get in and out, and the only thing they can change is some minor fluid changes and of course tires as well. And Aranji's the South African driver out at the moment. We've got Patamba out on track as well. Winkelhock in the 99 car, looking very good over there, and he is also out. And the Audis have been pushing this weekend, and we've seen them absolutely on the ragged edge, not just because of the lines they take, which are slightly different. We will dig into that over 9 hours, Dan, but the Audis have been pushing hard as the Bigfoot car now back in the pit. Sunbuli, of course, alone in that car in the 1 hour Cup race later on.
And a 68-year-old, so amazing. I think he's the oldest driver ever to compete at the Kyalami 9 hour. So we wish him good luck in his 1 hour race in the Super Cup tomorrow. And he's managed to get back going, so Bigfoot Racing can go and set a representative time. So going back to the story of Sun Energy 1 and the 75 Mercedes. Yeah, they're going as a Pro-Am now. It's a big goal of Kenny Abul, the owner of that team, to win Bathurst. He has a house on the Conrad Straight. He's that's his boyhood dream, and he entered in the Pro class, but he is the Pro-Am champion in the Intercontinental GT, and he's going back for that now, so he'll be finally scoring championship points this weekend.
Yeah, Yannick Mettler out for that car at the moment, so watch that car. But Kenny Hubble's story, such an interesting one. I mean, he used to wash the wheels on the Peter Brock car many years ago at Bathurst, and eventually ended up owning that car. And not only owning that car, but now also winning at Bathurst. 2 years on the trot in Pro-Am and in Pro, unbelievably, as Marcus Winkelhock goes across the line into first position for the first official time of the day. 146.460 is the time, and a little bit slow at the start of the session, but it's early days still as the rest of the drivers make their way around.
Yeah, obviously vital for a driver to actually put a time in. With it being average, you have to set a time, so they'll probably be going a bit slower in the first lap. It's not all about today, it's just bragging rights today. You've got a 9 hour race, this is not F1. Pole position is not as important, you can make it up, but Audi have been pushing hard. They've been looking good. They've been looking stronger than they were here last year, certainly in the timings. I mean, when you go and watch them out on track, they're squirming all over the place. They're using all of the track. Track limits might play a role here. We've seen a few invalidated tracks.
There you go.
Turn 16 is the one we want to watch out the most. That's where a lot of tracks have been invalidated. That could be an issue here in qualifying. Turn 2 wide as well. Lesser of an issue, but we've seen a few invalidated there as well.
Exactly, and historically, though, there have not been many invalidations at Kyalami. Certainly not at the 9 hour, but this year already, warnings are flashing up on our screen over and over yesterday, Dan, and I think that the drivers are pushing absolutely on the limit at the moment, and maybe exploring those track limits a little bit more closely this year.
Obviously, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So they were very clear in the driver's briefing of what was acceptable and what is not acceptable. The big one being turn 16, Ingwe. Let's start using the actual names. If you put your tyres onto the red paint, go wide over the curb, your lap will be invalidated. The drivers are very clear, they can't argue against it. So let's see whether this Audi does. There you go, pushes to the limit, but that looks safe to me.
Stoltz now in first place. 3D in second. Winkelhock slips down to third, but back into first place with a 43.8. And this is a much better indication of where these times are going to end up as the session trots on. The first few minutes done, 7 minutes to go. And there goes, that looks like Mikael Patamba in that purple Mercedes-Benz over there. And Mikael Patamba, of course, the DTM Trophy debutant, having raced overseas in DTM, thrown in the deep end, but coming back here with some serious pace. There was definitely a shift in mentality, in pace, in overall technique, and overall just being a better driver. I think that's what's happened, an evolution, shall we say, for Mikael Patamba further back, as Yannick Mettler in the Sun Energy car finds himself in second place. And these guys are, I think they're starting to push now, Dan.
Yeah, and I see already, as we've been talking track limits, one lap has been invalidated. It's the number 80, and it's the MJR Motorsport car, the local car that will be doing the full 9 hour. Young Kawanda has had his lap deleted on turn 16. It's the turn 16 one that seems to be a problem. So we'll look out for him. He is absolutely over the moon to be here. First time driving here at Kyalami, but he was the winner of the 9 hour at Kyalami in the National Championship. Yep. So certainly got plenty of experience. 18 years old, already picked up a silver FIA license, so we wish him well this weekend. Yeah,
you mentioned that silver license might be a lot for such a young driver, but he has won a local championship, a national championship, in fact. So he is out here for the first time in the 9 hour. Kwanda Makwena, the South African endurance champion, and now finds himself fighting with the big dogs, shall we say. Winkelhock atop the stands. Very wide for the Audi there. Wonder if that was an invalidated lap. We're looking at the race control messages. Nothing's come up so far.
It's usually slightly delayed as they check on it, but it will be deleted later if he has gone wide. Winkelhock's time of 1:43.9 is not representative of what we thought he'd be capable of. I was expecting lower that sort of low 43s, but track temperature is very, very high. We're looking at 52.8 degrees track temperature. So it's going to be really hot in those cars, even for a short qualifying session.
It's going to be exceptional. There goes our lone GT4 car. And there is only one R8 GT4 car, the Ellerine car, currently circulating. It won't be anywhere near the GT3 cars, unfortunately, but great experience for young Ellerine to be doing this 1 hour race in GT4 Cup. There goes Drudy now in second position, and he finds himself with a 1:43.9. I mean, look at how close these times are for the top three. He's separated by just 1/10 of a second, just over. So the top three drivers, and this is what we were talking about, Dan. The top three drivers, well, the top drivers are so fast. Although we don't have 30 cars on the grid, you've got some of the best drivers in the world, and it's going to be close, Dan.
We've got 5 full pro entries, and even the pro-ams have got some platinum drivers in it. We're looking at the likes of Jules Gounon. He'll be after the bragging rights of pole here when he comes through in the third driver, if he can somehow get it up there. But Drudy now's gone top over Winkelhock, so looking very strong for the Audis. Dries van Thor, who had the fastest lap last night in the night session, and he's got a very high VMAX, so still incredibly quick down the straights. 2:37, fastest car down the straight, but his time is not representative of it, is it? 1:45.1. So we'll see where he goes. He's improved a little bit. 1:44.1, just knocked a second off it, no problem at all. Got 2 minutes to go, though.
And that's what we saw last night. The BMW has been exceptionally fast. And as you mentioned, 238 kilometers an hour for this BMW we just spoke about now. And the Eng BMW, 236. Whilst the other cars are all running from 230. The lead car with a VMAX now of 231 kilometers an hour. Second place man, 230. And that's a big gap on a circuit like this, Dan.
It's going to be a massive advantage. Van Thor's just gone 238.4. Yeah, it's going to be a huge advantage down the straight, isn't it? And it was a talking point during Bathurst, although they admitted themselves they just didn't have the pace to keep up with the front runners. They still managed to pick off a 4th and a 6th at Bathurst in round 1. But it's going to help, isn't it? 'Cause it's going to make them very hard to overtake. It could frustrate people. Might make passing a little bit easier into turn 2 Crowthorne if they do get a run. The story of Bathurst was their pace fell off as the temperatures rose. And here we're starting with very high temperatures and their pace is not quite there at the moment.
Yeah, so what we're thinking could happen is that these BMWs, as the night sort of falls upon us, those cars will get faster, the turbos will have more cool air, and hopefully they should be able to turn those top speeds into top lap times. But only time will tell, and that is exactly what endurance racing is about. It's about getting to the finish line first, and those last couple of hours, because it's a 9-hour sprint race effectively, and if they can get within striking distance by the final 2 hours as the sun starts to set, we could have ourselves one heck of a
look at that.
finish.
Philip Eng and the BMW just gone up to the top, and it's all changing at the start now. Drop back down. Dries van Thor, here we go. The BMWs may have turned those turbos up you've been talking about. I mean, we were speaking to John Watson earlier, and he was saying they're definitely sandbagging.
That was the
they
first
don't want
thing
to
he
show
said
anything.
to us.
I mean, we're waiting to 2 minutes down. I'm thinking, maybe he's got it wrong, but we should never doubt John Watson, should we?
Yes,
So
indeed. The
BMW
F1
first and third now.
Yeah, the F1 win, of course, the commentator, he's in the house with us and gave us a couple of good tidbits of information. There goes Dries van Thor now. And
that's better. That's matching his time from last night, isn't it? 43.299.
Yeah, that's a good time. 43.299 for Dries. And look at those speeds as well. Still 237 kilometers an hour. Engel now in second place with Eng in the other BMW in third. So BMW now with a top 3 for both cars. And this is turning into an interesting battle. I think many people saw this coming, but it's amazing to watch it unfold. And with just 1.5 minutes to go, qualifying 1.
The Mercedes drivers definitely saw it coming, because all of them, Mara Engel was the first thing I said to him, and goes, look, BMW is going to be strong here. We're concerned about our BOP. I mean, they've had lots of concerns. They've had electrical issues in that Group M car. I mean, Mara Engel was last here in 2019, and he was in the Group M team. They only managed one corner. The thing broke down on turn 2. If you remember back in 2019 with a coil pack that went down, and that was the end of their weekend. So they're hoping for anything better. At the moment, they're okay in third position, Mara Engel.
Well, look at the Audis. Second position for Trudy over there in that Audi. And as you said, Matea will be very happy with that as we wait for the classifications to update. Eng goes fourth in that BMW. Engel now in third place. So BMW Pip down to fourth position, and Engel takes first in the Mercedes AMG GT3. So BMW not on the front of the grid, but look at how close those times are. 1:43, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6 in the mix as well for Stoltz. And Winkelhock with a 1:43.8 in seventh position. The top 7. Whew. It's so close there.
Yeah, Marango just currently on provisional top of this group with a 43.1. That's a great time. And then when you add it to the averages of your other drivers at the moment, next Dries van voor 43.8. So, I mean, that's a good advantage to take. That's all you can offer. You're trying to hand that car over to your next teammate with a good chance of adding to your average time and putting it to the top. I'm just very concerned that they've had enough time in that 999 car to work out any kinks. I mean, you build a car from scratch. How many dry runs do you need? They've been through the pit lane so many times during all the free practice sessions here, testing all the systems, all the pumps, the electrical issues. These are complicated cars to be able to build, not in a factory environment. Speaking to the guy that's doing it, it would be easy if they're back in Germany, but they had to do it here, literally in pit lane.
It was amazing to see the focus on the faces of those Mercedes mechanics, Dan, and they were in the zone for days on end. And you got to ask the question, does that lead to a little bit more fatigue going into the night? Now, of course, these gentlemen are professionals, but you saw how relaxed some of the other teams were. Their cars came fully assembled, they had their game faces on, and they were sort of prepping themselves for the impending doom that is the Kyalami 9-hour, while the rest of the Mercedes guys in that pit were frantically putting that car back together. I wonder how that affects the mentality, Dan.
Well, I think it affects different mentality between a driver and a mechanic, doesn't it? Because the mechanics, no doubt, are relieved that there's no work for them to do now because the car's out on circuit. But the drivers, you've never met such chilled people in your life, have they? I mean, we were chatting to Marango for quite a while on when he first arrived, and I mean, he looks like he's on holiday.
Yeah.
His mechanics are frantically working to try and build his car behind him, and he's having a great time. So when it comes game time, they switch themselves on.
Indeed, and that's what makes them professionals. That's what makes them the quintessential race car drivers that they are. And there is that incredibly fast AMG GT3 fully assembled at the moment, and so far so good. They did a couple of slow laps, but immediately started to push the pace over there, and the 999 car right at the top at the moment. So yeah, everything going according to plan for them right now.
Yeah, Mikko Grenio will be taking over the wheel of that car for the driver number 2 before Raffaele Marciello will finish it off. And I mean, you think it should be quickest at the end. You tend to put your quickest driver in last. Marciello had the fastest lap in every session last year in the Acura ASP Mercedes. So, I mean, that's why they want to shove him in there. It's lightest on fuel. Obviously, the car cannot be touched. It's in part farming, but they will, each driver, get a fresh set of Pirelli P0 rubber.
Yeah. There goes Yannick Mettler. Hops out of his Mercedes GT3 as the next drivers now start to get ready. We've got a couple minutes before the next qualifying starts, and by the looks of things, we've got the driver number 2 coming up now. For that car will be Kenny Hubble. And Kenny, of course, the owner of and CEO of Sun Energy. He's got a house on the side of the circuit, 17 foot away from the circuit. Dan, what is that in meters?
Well, it says he's... yeah, I'm not... Thanks for that, Ellis. He's certainly a fan of Bathurst, let's put it that way. I mean, most people will be like, oh, that's a bit noisy to live so close to a circuit. But... yeah, he's what a character Kenny Hubble was. He really was. But he was on press shots here, and he just gunned that car straight out, left 11s, straight out of pit lane exit. It was great to watch. But he's here. He's having the time of his life, I think. And he travels everywhere. Any race he'll enter.
Yeah, an extensive CV, but even he will admit that some of these younger guys might be a bit quicker. He does weigh 20 kilograms more than them. 85, the average weight of the drivers. That is also according to the regulations. So he is quite a big fella, and big fella certainly can hustle that car. We'll have to wait and see how he does now compared to his teammate. But of course, as mentioned, this is all about average pace. As we see, the number 20 car, Stoltz, just out. Lucas Stoltz, the platinum driver, just out as Rhys Barr now preps himself to go out next. Rhys Barr, a silver driver in the trio, and there are your times so far. 1:43.167, just behind that Van Thor, and just behind that the Audi driven by Niederhauser, Feller, and Judy. I mean, look at how close those times are, Dan. Up until position number 7, these guys are world class.
Yeah, they're going to leave us waiting, aren't they, until driver number 3, because there's not a lot to split here and the times are going to be changing quite a lot. Obviously, the Pro-Am guys will come up the field when their pro drivers come in, likes of Jules Gounon going last in that 75 Sun Energy 1. Be interesting to see, going back to the number 20 car, Rhys Barr, the 22-year-old from Ireland. This is his first time ever in Africa, and you could tell it was his first time because he showed me his sunburn after 24 hours.
Yeah, you would know what that's like,
Yeah, well, it took me a little while to avoid that and the lessons learned, but he learned his African lesson in 24 hours, and he's managed to get some sun cream, he assured me, but he's enjoying it. Again, his experience on this track up until he got here was just simulator related, so interesting to see these young kids. They're learning on simulators, and he said it was a great benefit for him to do so. Obviously, it might not get you all the way there, but as far as progressing and learning the track, it's been a help for him.
Well, as far as Kyalami goes, and this is a shout-out to all our sim viewers or sim racing viewers out there, Kyalami on Assetto Corsa, one of the prolific simulators in the world of simulators, is, according to many, one of the best circuit builds out there. So if you're going to practice on any circuit, might as well be Kyalami.
Yeah, and we're going to have plenty of sim racers here in South Africa watching this stream, I'm sure, going, I can do those times.
Hold a bit.
So there we've got Amanda back in pits.
The technicalities of this track, are you happy with what you saw out of that?
To be honest, it was really challenging. The grip level is much lower than this morning, and it was a challenge to adapt. You know, a lot more sliding going on, a lot more untidiness than what I would have liked. But obviously, the same for everyone up and down the grid. So happy to be P1 there.
We saw you embracing Mick before you got in the car in a long conversation. What kind of information or insight did you pass on to him?
Not to expect too much grip, because I mean we're quite a long way off the lap times we did earlier yesterday and earlier today. So just to expect low grip, because it can catch you out, then you overdrive, overpush, and so on. So just to tell him that, you know, expect low grip and just a few more sort of small details.
Thank you.
So that's Mauro Engel.
David, just to...
Well, that was Mauro Engel in the 999 car. Grenier lining up next, and I think he will be happy with that performance. He did play down his abilities a little bit, but he is one heck of a fast driver, Dan.
Yeah, he is indeed. I think they're relieved that they know that car's working. It looks like it's working perfectly fine, isn't it? So maybe we don't need to worry. It's just me. I seem to have a worrying attitude about a lot of things. Always look glass half empty. But it's nice to see Marango get a representative time. He can hand it over. Grenier was he was racing for Sun Energy last year, and it was Jules out of that car, and he in the ACA ASP that won it. But he was very quick. When he raced with Kenny Ebel in the 75 last year, the orange one as opposed to the blue one that's here this time out. So he can try and push on from where Marango left him and try and keep that car at the top. Grove Racing Porsche, it always seems to be out first. They're quite eager, those Grove boys.
Brenton Grove, the young Australian, now out in the car. But the big name that many people have been talking about is Earl Bamber, the Platinum New Zealand driver, has got quite the CV, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need any introduction, does he? He's been around. He's a bit of a legend from a Porsche factory driver standpoint, driving anything from prototypes, DPIs, in the 12-hour Sebring. I remember him getting pushed round. That was quite an interesting race.
2 Le Mans wins.
Yeah, he's a Porsche legend, and he's going to help really push that Grove Porsche racing car to the limit here to try and chase down. I mean, their main battle is that in that Pro-Am category is going after probably the 75 in the Sun Energy one.
So could that be one of the storylines that we are going to be talking about today, is the best of the rest, excuse the term, the Pro-Am drivers? Could we find Pro-Am drivers near the top? Because certainly the teammates that they've pulled in for this year are right up there with the best of the best, and anything can happen in a 9-hour race.
Yeah, the gap between Pro and Pro-Am in a couple of instances is not a lot. I mean, you're going to see some Pro-Ams pushing in. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sun Energy one with Jules Gounon, the absolute class and winning machine that he is. I mean, he's just won everything in the last 12 months. He could get that Pro-Am onto the podium, and I think that the first thing he says is he's going for Pro-Am status classification first, but then they'll see where they're in the overall classification, and that could be a podium contender even with a Pro-Am set of drivers.
Yeah, we just had eyes on Raffaele Marciello, the man who won last year, and he just looks so relaxed. But now look at our South African Pro-Am driver, Arnold Neveling Stradale in motorsport. They have had some issues with that car, but certainly if anybody can pedal this car, it's Ari Neveling, as they call him. And I spoke to him yesterday about where they're currently at and some very interesting takeaways, Dan. They've got access now to data, and that's not usually the case for South African outfit. Usually we're kind of on our own. That's our story here. We kind of do things on our own, separate from the rest of the world, but not that team. They've got access to insights, information, data, and setups because they are vying for those IGTC points for Mercedes-Benz, and that's a big deal for South African team.
100%. It's a relationship, isn't it? We're here to gain you points for Mercedes. Can your engineers please help us with looking after telemetry? And what an advantage that is, the amount of experience that Mercedes engineers have compared to just one team. They can all play off each other. So the 4 Mercedes teams here are all working together. And Arnold said that he was handing over his telemetries from free practice and then getting information back. How amazing must that be? Direct from Mercedes here. We recommend you change this setting.
Wow.
And they found pace. They've got faster in every single practice session. So clearly it works.
Yeah. Someone that is also looking to get faster is Mo Mia in that Audi over there. That is Kwanda Makwena's teammate, and he is partnering with our title holder from our South African National Endurance Series. And Mo Mia, of course, also hoping to get a fantastic result in this qualifying session. Still plenty time to go, 11 minutes on the clock as the young Brenton Grove makes his way around through turn 16, dodges the red line, don't forget about that, and across the line he goes as he goes under the bridge. And that's when we see the cars, Dan. We're sat right next to that bridge, and just the sound of that Porsche, one of the best sounding cars here for sure.
It is, it's amazing. I mean, you can feel the vibrations as it goes past. I mean, they've all got such different sounds, and that's what's nice if you come here and spectate. The Audi, incredibly loud, that screaming V10. Then you've got the Mercedes that sounds like a Spitfire going down. If you catch these BMWs here leaving the pit lane, their turbo squeal is something to behold.
Oh yes, turbo. I do like the sound of turbos whistling, chuffing away. I'm not quite sure what a Spitfire sounds like, but I'll take your
That's
your
for our British fans.
Yeah,
British fans.
I'll take your word for it. But the Mercedes-Benz does sound good. The Audi a little bit too loud for me. I think I'm glad I'm wearing my earphones now when the Audi comes past, because that is a piercing V10 sound. But I'm sure pretty glorious from inside the car nonetheless.
Oh, it really will be. If you're planning on coming here tomorrow and you're not here today, then definitely pack a set of earplugs if you've got them available and you're going anywhere near trackside. You need them for those two Attempto Audis. They absolutely scream.
Yeah, we'll also be giving you guys some spotters tips to identify some of these cars, especially at night, Dad. Then we had a little bit of practice last night. You can see the yellow lights on the BMWs, making them a little bit more easy to identify than the other cars. The Audis have little light packs in the center to make them a bit easier to identify. I don't think it's actually for us, but certainly it makes our jobs a little bit easier when we're watching these guys carve their way around through the middle of the night. We wait for the first classifications to come up, and so far,
Grenier's gone a 43.6, so that's a quick time early on in the session, isn't it? We saw Maro Engel take his time to get down to his final lap time, but Grenier's just gunning it right from the start. Maybe Maro's giving him the go-ahead.
Well, we've also got session 1 times, and we've also got average times on our live timing system over here. And what it looks like at the moment is that Grenier is doing a 143.6 compared to the 143.1 set by his teammate in that same car. So they've averaged out to a 143.3. And this makes it a bit easier for us to speculate what happens in the next session, Dan.
It does. I mean, unless we've got a calculator and you're really good at working out averages, we're going to have to wait until the final classifications to see who gets pole, unless someone absolutely lights up the timing screen. But the 999 so far, I mean, if you win every session, you're on the front row of the grid. You're leading, aren't you? So you don't have to worry about your averages. That's where the 999 sits as we currently stand. 8 minutes to go, though. Some BMWs have still got to show their pace, and it's got Sheldon van der Linde in 8th position. So local fans will be desperate for that BMW to work its way up the grid.
Sheldon, of course, having 1 year before, but he said it himself. He wants to win again. He's done.
Look, you always want to win.
Yes.
Even if you won 3 times in a row back to back, you just can't get enough. These guys are super competitive.
Oh yes.
Sheldon van der Linde would like nothing more. I mean, it's a very dramatic victory he took in 2020 in the M6, but back now in a whole new car. That's what makes it interesting. That BMW M4's got a lot to prove. It's already it's been a little bit of both, hasn't it, so far in its since its existence in GT3. And obviously its massive target in the WRT team will be the Spa 24-hour later on in the year. But how they would love to get a Kyalami 9-hour victory under their belt.
Indeed, as we once again put eyes on the 999 car. So far, the fastest car out there in both sessions by the looks of it. And of course, on average as well. That Mercedes-Benz AMG runs a little bit wide there, straight onto that rumble strip. And there are certainly places where these drivers do steal a little bit extra, don't they, Dan?
They do. We've spoken about it already. They're pushing limits. We'll keep an eye on race control messages. That's a quick time from Grenier, 42.6. Marshall also in the 99 Audi, 42. So we're getting cars into the 42s. Yeah, I tell you that you've got 3 different manufacturers, all so close. GT3 racing, isn't it amazing? We just love it. Can't get enough of GT3 racing.
Yeah, well, if you've got cars that look and sound like this, oh man, just look at how hard those Audis are pushing. We saw last night. Let's talk about that, Dan. The Audis we saw yesterday, their lines are slightly different, and they do look like they're slightly more on edge than some of the other cars. Is it just a visual thing? Is it the setup thing? Is it the driver thing? We saw them coming out of the first turn over here, technically turn 2, and they were absolutely on the edge, running right over the curbs where other drivers were sacrificing the first left-hander to get that second right-hander, the first right-hander correct. They certainly were not doing that. They were pushing very hard through the Crowthorne turn 2 corner and Yuxke sweep.
I totally agree. They've been squirming about. BMW's a little bit as well, but less so. Merc looks pretty stable all round, but I mean, the way you drive that car, from what I understand, speaking to the drivers, that is, you've got to be smooth. You've got the weight hanging out the front. Interestingly, it looks like they all say the bonnet looks so long, but actually the engine sits so far back. It's behind the front wheels.
Basically
There's just
a mid-engine.
a huge airbox at the front taking up most of that space. So it's not as drastic as you think, but the Audi, totally different, obviously, different positioning and a bit twitchy.
Well, they do require a different driving style. With the Audi, you've got to drive it on the nose, as the UK commentators have pointed out earlier on. You kind of got to lean on the front of the car, whereas with the Mercedes-Benz, it's got a big front engine setup, so the car, I would imagine, rotates on the front axis, maybe a bit more the center axis, but slightly leaning towards the front as the drivers look at those screens with bated breath. And Jeez, that must be quite a nerve-wracking experience. Team BMW boys there watching on.
Yeah, they know this is an important lap from Sheldon van der Linde, and he's got a phenomenal pace but down the straight. 2:38.9. That is the fastest VMAX we've seen so far, I think, of the entire weekend. But so far only imagining a 1:43.299. So Sheldon van der Linde finding that BMW, in fourth position currently, 4 tenths off the pace.
It's quite interesting because these cars are so evenly matched based on the BOP system implemented by SRO. But what we're seeing is that they have different strengths in different places, and that for me is going to be something that's going to be unfolding over the course. That BMW looks good. Augusto Farfus making his way around now in 7th position. He's been to South Africa plenty of times. He was here for the launch of the BMW M4 a couple of years ago, the production car, and now finds himself in the brand new BMW M4 GT3 car. I've got to say, those looks are growing on me a little bit, Dan.
They are me as well. I have to admit, I've said it publicly, that the M4 with obviously the controversial grille was not something that really grabbed you. Well, it certainly grabbed your attention, but didn't grab your love when you first saw it.
I felt like
it looks good as a GT3 car,
yeah,
though, doesn't it?
I felt like BMW's been trolling us all along because we're still talking about the car.
Yeah,
and
it works.
It's one of those cars that when you stand around it, you can really enjoy all the crevices, cracks, and creaks of that car because it's an interesting shape. And it gives it longevity, I think, and it certainly makes it a talking point. Someone that is also a talking point is that number 99 car, Marshall, currently behind the wheel of that car.
It's looking like BMW is showing their hand finally this week for the first time, because I mean they did well in the first qualifying session, then up to second and third. Van der Linde up to second position now, popped in with a 42.759. That's a little bit better. That top speed's got to mean something. WRT team, massively experienced GT3 race team. I mean that. They've been involved with everything, and switching from Audi to BMW must be a huge change for them this year. They're working on that car They're slowly getting there. The pace is phenomenal in a straight line. At Bathurst, the Merc said there was absolutely no chance of passing them down either front or back straight. And if you can't pass them down that length of a straight, you're never going to pass them.
Yeah.
So they've got straight line speed. They're just trying to work on the twisty bits.
Yeah. Sheldon van der Linde seems to be getting the hang of those twisty bits in second place over there. And just to go back to Dennis Marshall over there, 26 years old, joined by Alex Acker, who's just 22 years old, Dan. Some young drivers in this field, notwithstanding Sheldon van der Linde, who's also 24 years of age.
Yeah, the whole team, actually, Sheldon van der Linde's team. I mean, 24-year-old Andries van Thor, you think he's been around for absolutely ever. Sheldon van der Linde, obviously himself, only 23, and Charles Verts, 21. So it's a very low average age. All platinum drivers, all with immense CVs. To their name. BMW have come here with 6 factory drivers, all platinum class. I mean, they're really throwing everything at this.
Yeah.
They want to win here.
They want to win here, and that's one of the, I think, answers to why the number 46 car, or at least the number 46, isn't in use this weekend. Of course, Valentino Rossi, a fan favorite, someone I certainly would have liked to see here this weekend, but BMW is coming here to win. I think this is a big market for them. They sell a lot of BMW M4s in South Africa, so they want to make sure they sell some more. Maybe the phrase race on Sunday, sell on Monday does ring true after all.
Yes,
And
I think in South Africa you're probably not far wrong. That definitely would be the case. Yeah, I mean, we heard before from the team that Valentino Rossi, his goal is in the European GT Championship, but he just had a longing to race that 12 hours at Bathurst, which is totally understandable, a bit of a bucket list item for him, which is why he joined for round 1. But I mean, Philip Eng, his CV speaks for himself. So it's an incredibly strong side. Drop the 46 number, and they go back to a 33. And they'll be trying, there it is indeed, 33, the white BMW, and Sheldon van der Linde is in 32, the yellow BMW.
yeah, the times certainly now are tumbling, but note that these drivers are running slightly lighter fuel loads. They started with a certain fuel load, and they weren't allowed to top it up during sessions or between sessions. So Augusto Farfus now finds himself in 3rd position on average, and van der Linde finds himself in 2nd position on average as well. So it is turning out to be quite interesting for the BMW 2nd and 3rd. We saw this early on as well, 1st and 3rd, but they got pipped on the line with 45 seconds to go. What's going to happen? I'm sure South Africans will be loving the fact that van der Linde name is right on top. Of course, family of the van der Linde heritage, shall we say. Etienne van der Linde, Sean van der Linde, and of course, let's not forget Henny van der Linde, the legend of South African motorsport, and now flying the flag once more in 2nd position currently, but that could change very shortly.
Yeah, so Michael Grenier is happy with his time. He's already in the pits. Tyres are off that, waiting to hand it over to Raffaele Marciello to complete that. If they can top that group, that 999, I mean, it didn't look destined to happen, look, with the troubles that they've had, but they could start from the front row of the grid.
Oh, we've got a replay here. That is Mo Mia over there. Oh,
that's a different place to overtake.
That is Farfus having to go down the outside and takes the inside line over there. That lap is ruined, but luckily no damage. Farfus still on his way.
Overtaking on the grass is never something you want to try, is it? It's the possibilities. And just to remind you, it's the pro cars, it's their responsibility to get round the slower cars. It's very much frowned upon a pro driver hitting a pro-am. So him going around the outside, the pro-am driver, he just has to race his race. He needs to be predictable, and then it's up for the quick guys to work their way past. That was an interesting way of doing it, though, for Farfus.
Abby from SRO, of course, hammering that home yesterday.
Very much so.
Very much so, that it is very important for the pro-am drivers, or the AM drivers for that matter, if there were any here, to specifically stay on line. Stay on your line. It's up to the pro driver to get past you, and that's exactly what we saw there, although Farfus, the Brazilian, running a little bit wide there, but thankfully getting away with it. The car will be checked. They are allowed to remove grass from the car, Dan, so if there is any debris on the car, they can take that off. But
just
other
no
than
setup
that,
changes.
Other than that, not much setup changes. They can change tire pressure. They can wipe the window, but that's about it.
Yeah. We saw Kenny Bull there. We didn't catch his lap, but in the 75.
Yeah.
That's a great lap from him.
144.4.
Yeah. So it's a great lap compared to, I mean, his other driver, Yannick, got a 43.5. Jules will be quickest in that team, but I mean, they've got to be pleased with that. I mean, Jules is incredibly complimentary from Kenny. Let's go to Amanda.
For the different makes, Mercedes is looking at their window around lap 5 or 6. With the BMW, it's going to be around lap 3 or 4. Augusto Farfus talking to the last driver going in, and I'm sure he'll debrief on his performance and what happened in qualifying. I did one of the things that I love here. You talk about the racing that happens in Kyalami. Augusto's family is joining us here, and he's got his kids that were rooting him along on that. So while he might not be happy with the traffic that he found there, I'm sure he'll get some hugs and smiles from the kids.
Lots of hugs all round so far. Good performance from Farfus in third place at the moment on average, as the drivers now start to get ready to go out for the third and final session of qualifying. Dan, we've made it so far. No major incidents yet, touch wood. But we now wait to see how all of this turns out as we get a look at the final turn 16 of Kyalami, and now the standings. Dan?
Yes, so we've got the 999, perfect start so far, taking both sessions. Grenier just captivating on from where Mauro Angel finished and handed over the car. Rafael Marciello, the quickest driver on paper at this track, just on the fact that he put it on pole last time round last year. So he'll go out next as the third driver. Then Sheldon van der Linde's BMW, the number 32 BMW, Dries van Thor and Charles Wirtz in second place so far with one guy left to go. Charles Wirtz will take that on as the final driver. Farfus, so it says BMW second and third. Front row of the grid, I mean, it's dragging rights to pole. It's a 9-hour race. Not super important, but it's got to be nice to be near the front.
Yeah, 1/10, and that's very near the front as we scroll down the order and see in ninth place the first of the South African local teams, Pro-Am, Ari Neveling, doing the D there. Clint Weston and Charles Aranji joins him. Mo Mia, Marius Jackson, and Kwanda Makwena just behind that. And, of course, the GT3 Cup drivers making up the rest of the field over there. At the end there, we got that GT4 car of Ellerine in that Audi. It's going to be an interesting day's racing, Dan, but it's not over yet for qualifying. We've still got one more session to go as the drivers now have it all to play for. And what kind of pressure can some of these drivers expect? I know that the third driver in that 999 car, Raffaele Marciello, soaks up pressure like a sponge.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met... He's almost asleep, isn't he, when you speak to him? He's so chilled out. It's unbelievable. We've got some other quick Pro-Am drivers, don't forget. Earl Bamber will take over the Grove Porsche. Let's see what time he can put in. And Jules Gounon, who's been phenomenal. I mean, he was the fastest lap so far this weekend, free practice 1 and 2. So he will go on in this 75 Sun Energy one.
That, I think, is one of the big stories as we go into this final session, Dan. What will the Pro-Am cars be able to do now? Will their fastest drivers in the lightest version of their cars for the session be able to go and take them further up the order? We see all the pros on top at the moment, as was expected, but could there be a cat amongst the pigeons, very fast pigeons? But could there be a cat in there somewhere today?
Yeah, and in some sense, it's quite a lot of pressure to shove on to your pro factory driver that's been given to you in the Pro-Am, isn't it? But, I mean, Jules Gounon, he can't lose, can he?
He doesn't
He's
know how.
the Daytona 24 winner already this year, won 3 weeks ago in a phenomenal final hour at the Bathurst 12-hour. Spa last year, won here the year before. His CV has certainly got a lot of checks off of it in the last 12 months, and he's feeling hot in that AMG.
It's not just the last 12 months. He's also won with Bentley, of course, partnering with South Africa's own Jordan Pepper, the sister of whom we chatted to early on our local broadcast. We might see her pop in the 9-hour as well, Tasman Pepper. And now he finds himself in a car that's pretty quick, and then a car that he knows.
Interesting way to cool the driver, isn't it? Fan him with the doors.
Yeah, fan him with the door. Why not?
No aircon in these, clearly. So we'll fan him. It just shows you how hot it is. And it's only a 15-minute session that these guys are going to contend with. It'll be interesting. I think tomorrow's just as hot. Double stints, certainly during the day. That's going to be a lot of hard work.
Fitness is going to play an incredible role. But when you see these drivers, they are trim, fit, and ready to race, most of them. Kenny Abul, the biggest one in the field there. But if you own the car, I suppose you can have a couple extra kilos on you.
I mean, but that's what makes his time actually so impressive. Jules Gounon is incredibly complimentary of Kenny Abul and his abilities, and the fact that he looks at sometimes at the times that he can produce and thinking, well, how is that possible? Kenny himself says that, I mean, he's literally carrying 40 kgs over Jules. I mean, he's a big guy. I mean, I'm a big guy, but I stand next to Kenny and I feel slightly intimidated. I'm not going to lie.
So Kenny Abul, the man that managed to put a very respectable time on the table right now, and there the names start popping up. We've got Marciello, Niederhauser, Acker, Gunon, Ramos, Bamba, the big names. And our South African Clint Weston also out there in the Mercedes-Benz. Clint Weston, of course, a professional driver, a former professional driver, now finds himself behind the wheel of the South African car, joined by Charles Ranges over there, and Ari Neveling, and the car on screen at the moment just looking fantastic. And even in person, the car looks well prepared, looks neat, clean, ready to go. The pace getting faster, but they did say that at this stage, they're not looking to compete with the international players. They want to see where they are, gauge their performance, finish the race. And the old saying that often gets said, and was actually said by one of his mechanics, to finish first, you must first finish.
Never more true in an endurance race. And I mean, needed a bit of a clean, that car, because Clint had a bit off in free practice too, didn't he, in pre-qualifying. And it's been an entertaining, but they're learning process, isn't it? That car is definitely going through a learning process, new to the team, new to the drivers as well. Clint Weston is the first time he's ever driven that car on this circuit this weekend, so he hasn't had a lot of track time to go. But it'll be interesting to see whether that puts him off a little bit in this third round, that off that he had earlier. Yeah,
he's the first time behind the wheel of a GT3 car. Of course, lots of experience with Mercedes-Benz, but the tyres were cold. Or at least the car was fresh out the pits. They just swapped cars at that stage. And, they also did mention that they don't have access to the tyres that the pro outfits have.
No.
They just don't have the budget or the amount of tyres. These tyres, Dan, you did a little expose on these tyres. They're not cheap, are they?
No, they're not at all. And it just shows experience being everything. So here we go, the Stradale Motorsport coming through Western. He was the first to admit, actually, the reason why he went wide at Sunset was because the team radio was talking to him. And it slightly put him off. And you don't think that would be the case, don't you? But you take your attention off at these sort of speeds, and he ran off wide at Sunset. So easy to do. I'm sure we've all done it in simulator work. And next thing, you're in trouble. So he's like, right, I've learned something here, something it'll take to his AMG experience, because he coaches a lot of drivers, doesn't he? He says he's learned a lot already just in the couple of days that he's been testing this week. And no doubt more through this 9 hours that he'll be able to put through to the Mercedes AMG experience here in Johannesburg.
If anybody can coach themselves, it's Clint Weston. Speaking of coaching oneself, the drivers now, eyes closed inside the car, getting into focus mode. And that man over there could be one of the most focused drivers we've seen at least in the images so far. But Dan, yesterday we spoke to Gunon in that Mercedes-Benz, and one of the interesting things that he pointed out was the fact that he doesn't really look at telemetry.
Yeah, that was really interesting. We said to him, how much do you learn from telemetry and data, or are you a driver that likes that? And he was like, no, I hate it. In fact, he has a special display. He has a special setting to turn off the delta from his screen entirely. He doesn't want to see whether he's up or below on data. He says he'll know. He'll feel it. He's a feeling driver. He doesn't want to get involved in braking zones or being really pedantic. He said he tried it once. It completely messed up his style. And I mean, look what he's done in the last year. So you're not going to change anything there, are you? But then his teammates, sometimes they're the other way. They go, no, I actually like a bit of data. I like a bit of feedback, a bit of information. So everyone's different, but it's working for Jules. Just thought that was an interesting approach.
Yeah, and then having spoken to driving coach Claudio Piazza Musso, one of the things he mentioned is that it's very important to feel the car. We sometimes forget that driving is a feeling thing. Feel those tires working. And I'm sure someone like Jules Gunon knows a little bit about what he's talking about when it comes to these things.
Oh, he really does. We mentioned the analogy that it's like learning to play music. Some people need sheet music, some people just play by ear. And Jules totally agreed. That's exactly it as a driver. He says he's more on feel. He doesn't need the sheet music. But other drivers, they can be just as quick with the sheet music. So it's whatever style you've got.
I'm definitely a sheet music person, and when I see my dad and friends just able to hop onto the piano and play a song without even looking at it.
Yeah, it's unfair, isn't it? I think the feel's better. It's classier, isn't it? It is a bit classier.
And I'm fumbling around with pages. But these guys certainly not fumbling in the pits. Race control incident, though. Between car number 80 and 33 under investigation. That is Mokoena, and that, of course, was Mia earlier on behind the wheel.
That's Farfus going around the outside.
Yeah. So
he said that it's the pro driver's job to get round safely, and I do not think race control will think that's a safe way of getting around a vehicle on the grass. So it could be in a bit of trouble here, Farfus.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of penalty that would justify, because he didn't actually go. he didn't actually cause any incident. The car just went wide. He was the one that went wide.
Passing cars off the circuit is more than frowned upon. Basically, that's what we're saying here, isn't it?
Well, interesting to see what the race control will say once this investigation is completed, as they make their way through the final sector of this incredible Kyalami circuit. This is the Kyalami 9-hour, and this is the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. My name is Ernest Page, joined by Daniel Haynes, and we're going to be keeping you company for the rest of qualifying and for 9 full hours, Dan, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon.
This is just a taster of what to come. 45-minute little tasting. It's a starter session, isn't it, before the main course that is the 9-hour race tomorrow. If you're watching this at home and you live locally, get yourself down here tomorrow. Tickets are still available. Go online. You've got to come down here. You don't want to miss it. It looks like, I'm touching wood here, everybody, I promise you, I'm touching wood. It's not going to rain tomorrow. You're going to have a great day out, and you can hear and experience this circuit and these cars in person. So much better.
Yeah, very important to note that you've got to buy your tickets online. You've got to buy tickets online and come through to the gate. They've got a very advanced system over here, but tickets are still available. They start at just 350 Rand, which gets you trackside. And without trying to sell anybody tickets, or wolf tickets as they say, Dan, it looks spectacular from trackside. This, I've got to say, as someone that's been to most of the circuits in South Africa, this is one of the most spectacular circuits when it comes to visual appeal from many vantage points.
From a spectator point of view, I don't think I've been to a better circuit. I mean, I was born and raised just outside Silverstone, and I mean, you only see one corner there. Here, general access, you can park yourself on the bench with your bride. You're looking at half the circuit. It's unbelievable. I mean, I really can't stress the elevation change. It took me by massive surprise when I first came here last year, and what it gives you as a spectator. So anyway, back to the action with 9 minutes to go for the today, and who's going to start from the front row of the grid. It's Acker in the Audi so far that set a time, but it's not really representative of what we're looking for, 1:45.192. So the big boys behind are just warming up their tyres. This is going to be the fastest these cars will be over the weekend. Fresh tyres, low fuel. This gives the chance to beat lap records. So far, we haven't seen a car get into a 41, like Mario Farnbacher in the Honda a couple of years back. Can these guys go at least low 42s? Rafael Marciello was the man last year in the Acker ASP Mercedes. Basically led from the front every single practice session, got it on pole. It was a dominant victory in that team with Jules Gounon as also riding with him, but now who finds himself against him in the 75 Mercedes AMG. So let's see how Marciello gets on here.
Some of those interesting storylines, Dan, are that some of these drivers were paired up before and now find themselves locking horns, but sometimes also going out for dinner. We heard last night that Kenny Abul and some of the drivers that he races against and with, all of the guys went out last night for a little bit of a snack at the local eatery, and now they find themselves on the circuit battling it out.
All the Mercedes factory drivers are such close friends. I mean, they love each other. They literally say that, oh, I love them. They fight. You got Mara Engel going up against Jules a couple of weeks ago at Bathurst. No hard feelings at the end. Mara Engel incredibly disappointed didn't win, but he's like, well, but I love Jules, and he went back to back to back. Never happened before. So yeah, Marciello, what a time so far, 42.556. Straight up there, that 999, they've pulled it out of the bag. Those engineers, if they can finish this, get past the first corner, they've gone better than they did in 2019. The engineers need a bonus this week, I think.
Well, look at this. Earl Bamber does a 42.4, which puts him right on top of the standings, if I'm not mistaken. But no need for those calculators, folks, because we've got a combined time up on the board over there, and you look on the left hand side of your screen, you can see those are the combined times of all the drivers, so that gives you an idea of where these cars are actually going to start. But Earl Bamber in the Pro-Am car has so far, if I'm not mistaken, set the fastest lap of this race so far with a 42.497 of this qualifying so far. I apologize, 42.497. Pro-Am driver, top of the standings, unbelievable.
Yeah, no, we know it's quick. It was quick in 2019, wasn't it? It's the last time we'll see the 991.2 because Grove are going to move on to the 992. I mean, if they can send it off with a victory in Pro-Am, they'll be happy. They smashed up one of the cars at Bathurst, absolutely written it off. They said there was nothing left of it.
Yeah.
But thankfully, the car for this race was already on the water, and they will be moving over to the new 992 at Spa. So a big transition, and then the final outing of that Porsche that we'll see probably.
Marciello does a 42.0, the first driver to get
Wow,
close to
close.
the 41s at the moment. That is exceptionally fast, Dan.
What
That
a
is
lap.
lap record pace right there. And Marciello now cements the drivers in the 999 car. The car that was once in pieces is now solidly ahead by 0.441 seconds. Just behind that is the number 66 car, and aka ACA car, I apologize, 99 car, with a combined time of 43.1. But gee whiz, look at Marciello go in that 999 car. On screen at the moment though, the
But where's
75 car, Gunan.
Where's the BMWs? That's what I'm mostly concerned about. So far, not set a time. Wirtz has not set a time, and we're working for it's the BMWs. They're leaving it really late, aren't they? 5 minutes. 33 and 32 cars. Not out. They're out on circuit, but they haven't actually posted a time. Charles Wirtz has gone through. Driver, I'm just looking at the other BMW. Martin has now set a time.
Yeah.
So that is a valid time, but it's not a quick one, which is why it's so far down the order.
That's going to count against them, because it's better to not have set a time at all than to set a bad time, because the average of all 3 times will then get taken into account. And if you don't set a time, the average of the 2 times then gets taken into account.
I'm just wondering, Ernest, I'm thinking out loud here, maybe they had light on fuel, so they didn't leave themselves too much. They're only going to do 1 or 2 flying laps rather than a full 15-minute sessions. Obviously, they put the fuel in at the start of this qualifying, and they're not allowed to top it up.
Yeah.
So they're leaving it late, our BMW, but Charles Wirtz, doesn't matter. He's got it up into 3rd place. I tell you, I'm a panicker, aren't I?
Gunan, though, is not panicked at all, and he's pushing very hard at the moment. 42.6, gets a 42.6 for his trouble, and there goes Jules Gunan, the calm in the storm at the moment, as he makes his way into that first corner. And watch out for those blue lights later on tonight. Those are going to be flying as Niederhauser makes his way through in the Audi. We just heard him fly past, and geez, you really can hear that Audi come past in that 66 car in 2nd place at the moment. Hard on the brakes for the left-hander, the first of 16 turns at Kyalami, but technically that is turn number 2 if you ask the local Andrax.
100%. And don't rule out Audi here. I think because they've had sort of troubles in Kyalami in the past, been a little bit off the pace. Certainly last year, Calvin van der Linde came here hoping for the best, but they just couldn't keep up with the Ferraris and Mercedes. But they're there this time round. They're flying under the radar. They'll like the pressure not being on them. Niederhauser up on the front row of the grid so far with the average time. He's at a 1:42.7. That's pretty damn solid. And Martin now behind with 42.8. It's close, isn't it? It's very close. And the 2 Beamers are on the 2nd row of the grid currently, splitting the Audis.
Highlights at the end of this, you will link to Priyan. She's gonna close and link to Enric.
Well, there goes the 66 car, currently in 2nd place, the first of the Audis. And look at Marciello, absolutely chilled out. He's already out of the car in the pits with 3 minutes to go. He's done and dusted. And
42 flat, there you go, no worries, done.
But that's always been his attitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
Gets in the car, does the work, walks away, drops the mic.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. I would need more than 15 minutes, that's for sure.
Well, I've definitely spent a lot more time than that on the simulator trying to get anywhere near these times as Niederhauser makes his way through, certainly wanting to beat that time. The gap now, 0.4 of a second as he makes his way around. He's going to have to gain 0.4 of a second on average as they make their way across the line. And still in 2nd place, 43.0. Gets 43.0 over there.
42.3 for Bamber, but it's not quite enough to pull the average times up significantly for that Grove Racing Porsche. Looks like they're going to probably start around 7th position because Jules Gunon's got quite a lead and an advantage over them in 75. Probably overall a stronger driver lineup, no disrespect. I mean, the Grove guys have done amazing considering they've never even been here. So awesome there. Marciello though, that 999 Grouper M AMG, all looking at the timing sheets thinking, have we done enough? I think they might have done.
I think they might have done. It's all quite a lot to take in, folks. So just to get you back up to speed, 3 sessions. Each driver does 15 minutes of qualifying. The average time is then calculated, and then we find out who's on top. What you see on your screen at the moment is the combined times of all 3 drivers so far. There goes Gunan. and he is currently in a respectable 6th position, first in Pro-Am, and that's what they came here to do. But many of us are expecting them to do a little bit better, but I do think if the results are going to come, they're going to come during the 9-hour race.
Yeah, BMW leaving it late again. Charles Wirtz has improved and he's brought his average time down to 1:42.8, and then Maxime Martin as well. Yeah, but the 75 car's going to have a lap time deleted, so that's Jules Gounon. I mean, he's pushing now probably, isn't he? He's not going to, with the average, not going to improve. But BMW got one of them on the front row, one of them on the second row. Put Niederhauser down in 4th. Looks how close it is that Niederhauser goes from 2nd to 4th in basically a minute.
But the gap still sits at just under 0.4 of a second between 1st and 2nd. So Marciello, there's nothing much they can do now anyways. They sat in the pit lane, car switched off, ready to go have a chill till tomorrow, I would imagine. But 42 seconds on the board. Can anything change? The car is in the pit. Bamber also now in the pit. Jackson in the pits, and there goes Charles Wirtz in 2nd place. Everything to play for now. 33 seconds on the clock. He's going to try and beat that time and makes his way through. Gets a purple sector for VMAX. So Charles Wirtz going as fast as he possibly can
Personal
in
best
recent
in
times.
Sector 2, but he's slower in Sector 1. I don't think it's going to be enough to pull down the average, but he's probably thinking more trying to keep over the 33 BMW. It's a battle between the two BMWs for the front row of the grid here.
Yeah, Martin in 3rd place, Niederhauser 4th, Acker in 5th position, Gounon in 6th, and there goes Wirtz now across the line. Does he retain 2nd place? Yes, he does. Keeps 2nd place, 42.7 the time.
That was a personal best, so he did improve his average, 42.768. And it looks like it's going to be Charles Wirtz has done enough to get the local favourite in Sheldon van der Linde's 32 BMW on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. A fantastic start for Team South Africa over there in the 32 car on the front row of the grid there for Wirtz and his teammate, of course, van der Linde in that car as well. But the team of the moment, the 999 car, the car that they had been assembling all week long, and now they finally find themselves with a car that is potentially a winning car. They were always the favorites, Dan, but we all thought that them assembling that car would make a difference. We asked the question early on, but now they find themselves relatively easily on the front of the grid.
It must be a bit of a relief, certainly to the mechanics that have worked tirelessly all week in that team. The drivers probably didn't think anything like that. They weren't confident on the BOP. I mean, it is just bragging rights for pole position here. It's a 9-hour race endurance, but it's nice. It's a confidence builder. Also, you know that car's working nicely, don't you? When you've got a car that you've just built, let's go back to Amanda.
Back on pole here to kick off Kyalami 9-hour. It's going to be a long race ahead. Starting from the pole, what's the advantage?
Yeah, obviously great to be back on pole, and big credit to these guys. You know, they worked very hard. Got a bit delayed on parts arriving late, so they had a big job to get the car ready. So a big thank you to the whole Group M team, and obviously great to be on pole, and great job also from these two boys here.
Mick, we talked to Mauro while you were in the car and said that the track, it was just so slippery, not a lot of grip out there. How did you find it today?
For me, honestly, it was fine. I think Mauro, as it was Q1, there was a different category before, so maybe there was some sand or oil on track. Because for me, from the first lap, it felt quite nice. Car balance was good, but I think on race pace, we still have to work a bit, so let's see tomorrow.
Well, you said after Bathurst it was going to take a while to forget what happened there. Do you get to start settling the score tomorrow?
I mean, we know that pole position doesn't count a lot for tomorrow. It's 9 hours. We know TBP game, so I mean there is a lot to do tomorrow, and we will see where we are.
It was a thrash to get this Mercedes ready for race day tomorrow. Do you feel like the Mercedes is where you want to be?
I mean, yeah, we are strong. We know also from last year we are good on tire degradation. When it's hot, we are also strong. The BMW can be strong in the evening when it's a bit cooler, and I mean, we'll see. It's also high altitude on this track, so I expect them to be really quick tomorrow.
Thumbs up all round. Interesting point, though, of course.
Well, Dan, there's not much in it at the front of the pack, and even Marciello, the man with a master stroke performance there, pointed out that anything can happen, in the words of Murray Walker, anything can happen in motorsport, and it usually does, and they've put the car in pole position, but they still have noted that this is a 9-hour race. Anything can happen. And the BMWs, the BMWs could still have something up their sleeves. This could be part of their strategy. Maybe they don't want to go any faster, but now I'm starting to think that they are pushing pretty hard. Both those cars are quite close in second and third position.
Yeah, I think the BMWs have finally shown their hands. We've got the 999 car that will start from pole, and then the 32 BMW with Sheldon van der Linde in it will be on the front row of the grid as well. Just behind them will be the 33 BMW, followed by the 2 Audis. Jules Gounon will be the first Pro-Am car starting in 6th position. But like Marciello said, it's the BMWs, they seem to have got over their problem of running in hot conditions that they had in Bathurst, because they're right there on pace already. All right, they're 3/10 down on average, but they're going to get quicker as the race goes on, is the feeling in the grid. We'll see whether that plays out tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. We're going to start off in hot conditions, obviously, being a 1 p.m. start, but by the end, those are going to be quick. If they can hold on to the coattails, it could be a grandstand finish.
Oh, I look forward to that. And this is the story of endurance racing. Anything can happen over the 9 hours. Things change, cars fall out, cars fall in. And we are certainly going to be finding out exactly what those strategies are as things pan out over the 9 hours. Dan, we've got Kriya Gangia down on the ground, ready to give us all the feedback of the course of this incredible race weekend. I'm going to hand it over to Kriya now, and she can give us a little bit of an insight of what's happening out there in the stands, and maybe whet those appetites for our viewers and listeners to come out here and see what's happening at the Kyalami 9-hour. Kriya, over to you.
A very big congratulations to the Group M team. What a phenomenal performance for them in qualifiers. But like they say, it's just kind of a kudos, because all the race action has to happen tomorrow for 9 hours. If you still want to come and join us, don't forget that tickets are still available. So go to ticketmaster.co.za and get your tickets right now. It's going to be a great day out for the family. You can bring your braai, your non-alcoholic beverages, your gazebos, your camping chairs with you to the venue and join us for a great day of 12 hours of full racing here at Kyalami 9-hour. From myself, Kriya Gangia, and the rest of the team, thank you so much for tuning in for qualifying. We will be back in the next couple of minutes with your support racers.
And there goes the 999 car. Dan, that car has all weekend been looking like the favorite, but not so much in the flesh, because it was apart the entire time. The Grove car running wide over there, but no harm, no foul. And just look at how hard they're pushing through the final sector of the corner. Debris flying off the car there as we take another look at that Grove car going wide there. Dan, they overtake by